and welcome to the Pekin First podcast. My name is Josh, and I get the absolute pleasure of serving as the online ministries director right here at Pekin First.
Hey there, Sean. Hey everyone, my name is Sean. I'm the pastor here at Pekin First. Good to be with you all today.
It is episode 72. Episode 72. We're getting up there in the episodes.
Yeah.
Hard to almost keep track of them. Episode 72, and it's called "The Story Continues." We're going to go through the story after Easter.
Yeah.
We all spend a lot. We spend a lot of time focusing on Good Friday and Monday, Thursday, and Easter. What is the story after that a lot of people forget, or you're as if you're what do they call that, a CNE Christian, Christmas and Easter, you kind of lose that part of the story. So and I've been there, and we were just talking just a second ago, and you were like, what's the balance on this one type of thing, and I'm like, well, this isn't a story I'm not really familiar with. It's
really, really important.
Really, really important, though.
Yep,
for sure. All right, we start each of these Pekin First podcast with this week's personal best.
Yeah.
And Sean, I'm gonna let you go first.
Easter Sunday, man. Easter Sunday was the pinnacle of the week. So good. Maundy Thursday was great. Good Friday was great. We did have to battle through some storms and all kinds of distractions on those couple nights, But Saturday was great with Open Table during the day. We fed 30 folks at Open Table, had 16 volunteers, sent 53 meals to Salvation Army. So, that's a wonderful thing, too, to be able to say on the Saturday of Easter that the church went out of its way to bless those who are in need over the weekend. I'm so proud of that. And then Sunday, great celebrations. Had a wonderful lunch that day with some good friends that we got to go hang out with and spend some time with, and then relax for the rest of the day. So it was great.
Yeah, it was definitely a good weekend for sure. And you mentioned the Open Table Cafe. Just in case you want to get involved in that, the next one happens June 6th.
Yeah.
So, and they're already planning that. So if you want to be involved in that, just hit info@pekinfirst.org and she will get you hooked up. My personal best this week is, and I don't remember what day it is because all my days are running together, but I walked into a Casey's to get a cup of coffee, and this was just up here on Court Street in Pekin. And I had I was walking towards the coffee machines, and this older gentleman, I say older, I don't know that he was older. He looked older, was going towards the hot food where, the biscuits and gravy are and the sandwiches and the breakfast pizza and stuff. And he goes, man, I can't wait to get some of those biscuits and gravy. And he walked up there, and he came back with biscuits and gravy and a coffee that he had previously. And he walked up to this guy, and this guy goes, all right, let's get you paid for. And this was a homeless gentleman, a homeless gentleman. And this guy just basically said, hey, if you're hungry, let me buy you some breakfast.
Wow. Yeah.
And bought him breakfast and a refill on his coffee for later, so he could come back in and get a refill on his coffee. The young lady behind the counter, he said, I want to pay for a coffee later. And so she gave him just a separate receipt so he could come in and get coffee later in case she wasn't there. And that just 100% warmed my heart.
Good Samaritan. Yeah.
100%. And I struggle with, to be perfectly honest, I struggle with giving people in need cash. And I'm a little jaded on that because of where I do a lot of business at. There's a lot of drug use and mental needs help that needs help that's needed mentally wise where I'm at. And so I struggle with giving cash, but man, this guy had the right idea. Yeah. Let me give you a hot meal, because it was a chilly morning that morning. And let me give you a hot meal.
Yeah. And those are times too where a card with the Open Table Cafe would be a good opportunity too. We have the cards, that anybody who's listening, and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, there you go. And you're thinking to yourself, man, I wish, I would have, because I run into those situations all the time. I wish I had some way of, letting people, we have the cards, get yourself a stack of cards and have them available so you can hand to people when you see them and say, hey, Open Table Cafe at Pekin First every other month, and maybe they'll show up. That'll be a good thing.
Absolutely. I do have another one, and that is after my hectic week is doing this with you, doing ministry with you, and doing ministry with the good people of this church. This is one of my favorite times of the week, because it forces me to slow down and be in God's presence. So just wanted to say that's I was walking in here going, man, I get to slow down for 20 minutes and just focus on scripture and God's word. So.
Good.
Yep. All right. So this is episode 72 called The Story Continues. So let's talk about what happens right after the resurrection. So let's kind of go back a little bit and we'll talk about the Easter story that you brought to us on Sunday in your words, I guess. Right. And it was Mary who discovered that Jesus's body was gone.
Right.
And now this is where I get confused in text, is some say that it was Jesus sitting there.
Right.
Saying that he wasn't there.
Right. Yeah. It's there are some differences in the text. Some say one angel, some say two angels, some say Jesus himself. John's gospel says Jesus himself, and he actually has a conversation with Mary in that moment. She doesn't recognize him. I think it's really important to say at the outset that what happens after Jesus comes back from the dead is critical, and it really is the catalyst for the launching of the church. And it's not the event of Jesus rising from the dead. This is what we talked about on Sunday. It's not an event, it's the experience. It's what they experienced in those first days and weeks following the resurrection that really made all of the difference. So the moment of Jesus rising from the dead is the thing we kind of think about when we think about Easter, is really much more than just an event. It is an ongoing experience, because those folks, they weren't expecting anything. They didn't believe anything. Many of them doubted that even the story that Mary came back to them and said, hey, he's alive. Many of them said, oh, yeah, right. No, this I have to see it to believe it, kind of a thing. So yes, there's a lot of honest struggle that's happening there. And I think that there's a lot of people who listen to these podcasts or maybe go to church or don't go to church anymore because they can't. They think they can't, I can't believe some of that stuff. And because I can't believe it, therefore I can't be a Christian. And what I would say right off the bat is nobody at the beginning believed anything. So those first disciples of Jesus, they didn't believe anything. And Jesus didn't make them believe anything to follow him. He said, you come follow me. And, and then you're going to believe as you go. It took Thomas all the way to the very end before he even believed anything. He had to put his finger in the hole in Jesus' side to actually believe it. And that's when Jesus says to him, you believe now because you've seen. Good for you. And then he says, blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. And that's all of us. We haven't seen it. We didn't get to experience the risen Christ, but in the way that they did in that first century. But we get to experience the risen Christ in a variety of other ways and experience God's love in our lives and his forgiveness and his grace. And all of that has to do with resurrection power. So, yeah.
Well, and you had mentioned, he had to put his fingers in the wounds. And so as he starts to appear to the disciples, it's in locked rooms.
Yeah.
It's impossible places.
Yeah.
And impossible things.
Yeah.
And it just proves that God does impossible things.
Yeah, like we said on Sunday, he's God's still rolling stones away. That whole idea of the stone being rolled away in front of the tomb. Mark particularly says it was a very large stone. Why does he need to tell us it's a very large stone? Because throughout the next 2,000 plus years, however long it's going to take before Jesus does come back, there's going to be a lot of us who are going to have a lot of big, large stones in front of our lives. Blocking us from experiencing health or experiencing love or experiencing the fullness of God, whatever it might be, whatever that stone is, God's still in the business of rolling those stones away. And I love that song we sing, and the band sings The House of God, where it actually has that line. It says, God's still rolling stones away. So good stuff.
Yeah. That's a great analogy for how it applies to our lives today is, there's always going to be an obstacle in our way, and God is going to take you through a plan, and it's not always what you're going to expect. Like they didn't expect Jesus to rise from the grave. They didn't expect him to show up in those locked rooms. They didn't expect to see the wounds of the sacrifice of the
crucifixion.
The crucifixion.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
They didn't expect any of that, but it made me think of something today, and because I've been on this kick of, even if I don't, will you? Right? Will you still have faith in me, even if I don't? And we tend to doubt. We tend to doubt our faith sometimes. We all do.
Yeah.
If Jesus wouldn't have showed back up as far as proving to them, besides him being gone, right? If at the tomb is where it would have ended, meaning that's where the last place that they would have tried to, Jesus would have tried to prove that he had risen, would they have still believed?
Right. Yeah.
And the answer is probably not.
Right.
And that's his closest followers.
Right.
So us having doubt is part of faith.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting to me that we have, over time, reduced the idea of faith to some kind of set of beliefs and principles that we're supposed to believe in our brain. Like, if I believe all the right things cognitively, then I'm a good Christian. The idea of believing, the way we think about believing, particularly as it relates to certainty, like I'm certain on all these things. If you're certain about everything, you don't need faith. Faith is necessary for people who aren't certain, who don't know, who don't really believe all the things that they're supposed to believe. They're trying and they're trusting, and that's the key, Josh, is the word that is translated as faith in the New Testament really is much more about trust than it is about belief. And the idea of trusting something is completely different than a set of cognitive principles or propositions that we believe in our brain, So
Absolutely.
Faith is about trusting. It's about taking a step of faith every day to say, I may not believe it. I may not have certainty about it. I don't even know what's going on, but I trust. And that's what those first disciples were doing. They were saying, oh my goodness, Jesus just walked through the wall into our room. Is it a ghost? Are we hallucinating here? What's going on? But they trusted. They listened to what Jesus said, which wasn't, interestingly enough, it wasn't explanation about what was going on. Right. Jesus didn't set them down and say, okay, fellas, here's exactly what's happening. Let me tell you, scientifically and all of that. No, he just said to them, peace. And then he said, as the Father has sent me, I'm sending you. Now get out of here. Go on and go do ministry and start the church. And that's how it all started. It launched out of trust.
Yeah. And you talk about belief, and I mean, he rose in front of his disciples. He rose Lazarus from the dead. Yeah. And you still want to doubt me when, right. But, and then you were just talking about, go, he said, go
make disciples.
Make disciples.
Yeah.
That is the beginning. That is not the end. Easter is not the end. It's the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the beginning of faith, because not everybody got to witness the things that the disciples did, right? They didn't get to see him in the locked rooms. They didn't get to see him. Their fear got changed to peace.
Yeah.
They experienced two emotions there, and nobody beyond them was going to be able to do it. So going out and making disciples was not an easy thing.
No, but we see it, we watch it unfold to where the very first day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2, 3,000 people join. Why? I mean, they didn't see anything. They didn't get to touch Jesus's skin. They didn't, nothing tangible. There was something about the message of these first disciples that was so powerful and so convicting, because they had, in fact, seen Jesus. And I think he had to appear to them and to the people that he appeared to over the first 40 days. So Jesus is in a resurrected state for 40 days after he rises from the dead. He appears to the apostles, he appears to the women, he appears to many other people in a tangible way. And he had to do that because they had to have that little bit more of something that was going to convince them so that they could be compelled to go forward and preach this message, regardless of what it cost them.
Right. And it costs a lot of them.
Their lives.
Their lives, yeah. Yep. All right. So just as we continue through, we'll call it the post-Easter, the post-resurrection part of the Christian calendar, know that the making disciples is a start, and they all started with doubt.
Yep.
And doubt is part of faith.
Yep.
So if you know, and your message resonated with a lot, I know this Easter of, I'm going to lean into my faith. That's a huge, huge statement.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to lean fully into it to do it.
Yeah.
Meaning that we don't have all the answers, and we're going to do this one day at a time.
Yeah.
One hour at a time. We're going to start with 1 hour at a time, and we're going to go forward, and we're going to lean into that faith by being the guy in the Casey's that buys the needy guy a cup of coffee and some biscuits and gravy, or just the cool things or the good things that you see throughout the day. That is creating disciples.
Yeah.
That is people with doubt having faith.
Right. I mean, it kind of reminds me too, when you think about, so let's do a real practical thing here. So you decided that you're gonna take on a new career. You're gonna do a new job. You don't know what you're doing. You haven't ever studied it. You just feel like, okay, I'm gonna do this, right? What are you gonna do? The next things you're gonna do is you're gonna study. You're gonna learn. You're gonna develop your skills. You're gonna get some training. It's the same way with Christianity. You know, we begin and we say, okay, I really do think I want to follow Jesus. I want to be more of a disciple this year. I want to follow closer and have more faith. You're not going to just say, God, give me more faith, and it's going to drop out of the sky. It's our responsibility to be a disciple. Read your Bible, pray, listen to Christian music, read Christian books, go to church, get involved in a small group, serve others. You buy breakfast for a fella at the gas station. You know, all those little things. Pretty soon, as you start doing those things, you begin to realize, wow, my life is changing. You know, I'm a better person. I feel better. I have more joy in my life. I'm a more loving person. It all happens with little baby steps, trusting Jesus every day to be with you and guide you and show you what to do.
That's incredible because, so I've been doing property management for 15 years. And before that, I was second in command at a automotive group here in Central Illinois. So I went from the car business to property management. I had no clue what I was getting into, no clue what I was going to do. It was a different part of the family. They knew my trustworthiness, they knew my business sense, and they said, why don't you give this a shot? My comment to one of the family members was, look, if I'm going to do this, I have to live, eat, and breathe this because I want to be really good at this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is what, if I'm going to lean into something, I'm really going to lean into it.
Right.
How many of us have done that with our faith? Not very many.
Right.
I know I haven't, and I get to work in ministry, and I know I haven't. It's incredible when you put it in today's circumstances. When you take on, like you said, when you take on a new job, when you're going to learn a new skill and you lean into it. When you're going to go, you really want to be a doctor, and so you lean into that for 10 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a long. Let's start leaning into our faith that way.
Yeah.
And you can do that right here at Pekin First. We have so many opportunities to just immerse yourself in faith through Wednesday night Bible study, through Sunday morning Bible study, through youth group Sunday nights, ways to serve like Open Table Cafe. We're going to the food bank in Midwest Food Bank. Just all kinds of ways to serve the community here through Pekin First. And that's how grace flows. That's how faith is built. And you can lean into it right here.
Yep. Yeah.
So
that's what it means to be Easter people.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So you can find all the ways that you can lean into your faith by visiting pekinfirst.org, or you can follow, subscribe to Facebook, YouTube, or why don't you take this podcast and share it, and maybe somebody else seen it that needs to lean in their faith, that has that how did Emmy put it? That uncomfortable feeling. and they just need to take that next step. Maybe this will help them take that next step.
Yeah.
So do subscribe and share our podcast. That would be awesome. I think that's all the time we have for today. Anything else?
I think that's great. Thank you all for being with us today.
All right. Remember, God put us here to do great things. So let's go do great things.